Hi everybody, thank you for joining the latest Wellingtone community event. Today we're going to be looking at what can you do to strengthen your level of maturity at the moment. So today we are talking about strengthening your PMO maturity. We're going to be talking about the evolution of PMO, so how PMOs evolve over time. So I'll show you a little snippet of our particular Wellingtone maturity model, if you like, that kind of demonstrates how PMOs change over time on a natural basis. Then we're going to identify some tactics for maturity, both from a project management and a PMO perspective, and uncover how you can get started and also learn how Wellingtone are here to help you on that journey. So let's talk a little bit about PMO evolution. You'll notice that if you've seen any other maturity model, whether it's project or individual, there's usually around 5 levels. It's a happy accident. This is the Wellingtone Maturity Assessment, and we are able to plot your PMO along this scale of 1 to 5. At level 1, we call this the initial PMO. So this is where there isn't really any defined processes in place yet. There's not really a PMO team or any real measures looking at project management delivery or confidence. What usually is happening at this initial stage is maybe we've had a change in leadership, and as a result, we've got somebody new or in the business who is more focused on the project world. So maybe they've come from a project-focused organisation. They've maybe just had some training and are understanding the value of it. So we've maybe got 1 or 2 people who are kind of beating the drum, but we don't have anything fully defined. At level 2, we call that defined. At this point, we start to see pockets of excellence and some processes being in place, but the application of those is going to be mostly down to the individual or the team or tied to a specific project or program, maybe because it's a bit more politically important, it's got more eyes on it, and we need a little bit more structure around it. There will be some defined PMO skill sets within the organisation, but at this stage, there is not necessarily a PMO function. So there isn't necessarily a team. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. A very legitimate response to do we need a PMO is not right now, but we do need the skills that a PMO or the responsibilities that a PMO would fulfill. And we quite often find those dispersed around the organisation. So in finance, there'll be somebody who looks after project accounting. In the operations team, there'll be somebody that's looking around quality assurance, as an example. At the defined stage, there will be some few measures, but not many, not really anything that's used for anything more than understanding at the project level, how am I doing? So we do find this will evolve during the journey from moving into level 2 to heading towards level 3. But at the beginning, there won't really be any real measures in place that we're using to make decisions. Once we hit level 3, we call this standardized. This is where now all of our processes are detailed, they're educated, they're repeatable, and there is usually at this point a PMO in place. This is typically the tipping point where we see the need to bring those dispersed skills into a central place. So that PMO will be providing usually guidance and some limited education, maybe on an ad hoc day-to-day basis. And there'll be some measurement of high-level KPIs which are communicated to direct management. So the sponsor of the PMO and the sponsors of the project who want to know how things are getting on. At level 4, we call this managed. This is where all of our processes are now embedded and utilised consistently. Consistency is a magic word when it comes to level 4. So we're looking for true consistency, not we are consistent except for that team over there. That is not consistency. So we do need to make sure that our project frameworks are now developed enough to be able to cater for different styles of projects so that teams don't get left behind. There's usually a dedicated PMO function at this stage that enables communication, learning, and is really focused on that culture of change through building a community of practice. So there'll be a method to make sure that we have confidence in both how the projects are performing as well as the PMO. And that information is shared with senior management to help them make decisions. And again, one of the magic things we look for here is that the PMO is measuring its own performance as well. At level 5, this is called optimizing. This is where all of our processes are now in a continuous improvement loop. So we know what and how we do projects, and we are now identifying areas for improvement and innovation. So the PMO at this stage is respected as a center of competence and provides a career path for project professionals that include projects and the PMO roles as well. So quite often we find in lower levels of maturity that if the project management levels exist in the career paths, the PMO will kind of be slotted in. It isn't necessarily seen as a strategic discipline within our organisations. So we are looking for that kind of performance of both projects and the PMO, and we're looking for that information to inform future decision making. So really working at that strategic level and really focusing on innovation and continuous improvement, as I mentioned. Now, when I start working with PMOs, the question we always get is, where am I now? And that's a really important question. Most PMOs that I start working with are at a 2 something, so usually between a 2.2 to a 2.6 as an average. And when we then ask the question, where do you want to be? It's very tempting to say, well, obviously 5. 5 takes a long time and a significant amount of investment in time and money and effort. Most PMOs that I work with who are starting at that, let's say 2.5, are very happy if they can get to a high 3 or a low 4. You know, we're still 100% better than where we were. We're using everything consistently. We're able to inform decision making, and we're really driving that culture of excellence. So thinking about where you currently are, what characteristics do you see in yourself, and then figuring out what's a realistic target for us. In terms of some tactics, so let's look at project management. There are some known tactics that support growth for your project management as a practice within the organisation that are strategically seen as something important and valuable. So first of all, there's the methodology. So having a consistent, practical, fit-for-purpose project management framework with the life cycle and the governance structures, which we would recommend is based on best practice, but also tailored for the organisation, is the first step. Now, wherever you are on your maturity journey will very much depend on how advanced this methodology is. So in some cases, we literally start with 5 stages, 5 documents, and that's as simple as we need to be, or as complicated as we need to be. And what we're trying to do by developing methodologies is to give people a bit of a map. So if they're asked to run a project, they kind of know what the next step is, where to get help, when the decision points are, to really help them to move their project in a controlled fashion through stage to stage. The important message here is the days are gone where we say just follow best practice blindly. All project management methodologies are designed to be tailored. So make sure that you look at your reality and you kick out anything that you feel that just doesn't apply to me. The second big tactic that's going to help your project management maturity is to actually have a PMO of sorts. So developing the capability of the team who are delivering those services, those responsibilities to support best practice. So making sure that we have a roadmap, we know where we're going, and ensuring that we are able to know what and where we can add value and at what level. And again, when we start with PMOs, we tend to be very tactical, and we'll talk about the tactics for maturity in a second, but it's about understanding where we are and how we develop our existing capability to get to that next level. The third thing that's going to give us a boost of maturity when it comes to project management is technology. So levering ourselves with some kind of technology solution that's going to help us to drive that consistency, give us that one version of the truth, which everybody's striving for, and giving that transparency and the ability to collaborate is going to be really important to be able to work in a consistent way, in an efficient and effective way, with everybody feeling confident that they're doing things the right way, without having to re-educate everybody every time they see a different kind of report. So make sure that you have a look. If you're in the Microsoft Cloud, you can have a look at our website. We're a Microsoft Gold partner and we deploy that technology. So there's lots of webinars that you can watch back. There's lots of articles on how the Microsoft specific technology can help you with that. And then the fourth thing is training and support from a project management perspective. And this is not just about training the project managers. Chances are your project managers either are already professionally trained or we need to get them some support. But understanding what skills we have in the business and then making sure that we are giving the right people the right training and support, not forgetting people like our sponsors, the accidental project managers, and even the line managers who are very much involved in change and quite often get forgotten. So thinking about, as an organisation, to improve our project management, can we create a community of practitioners? Can we buddy people up to do some mentoring, and thinking about people's career development that just spans a little bit wider than the delivery teams? So how do PMO take this to develop the PMO maturity specifically? So first of all, we've talked about that methodology. The PMO needs to take a pragmatic view. One of the biggest complaints that we get from PMO teams or from delivery managers who are working with PMO teams is, I didn't fill the right template in, or it was in the wrong color ink, or it wasn't saved in the right place, or it wasn't named the right thing. So first of all, from a PMO perspective, is take a pragmatic view and understand, first of all, how can we simplify? How can we make the framework scalable so that we're not trying to use the same set of stages and tools and templates for every single activity? The chances are some activities are bigger than others, are more complex than others, and we need to make sure as a PMO that we're defining that for people, with people, so that they're not adding bureaucracy for no reason. The PMO itself, we need to understand the value that the PMO can bring, and that is understand and also be able to articulate the value. Again, one of the biggest problems we have with PMOs is we are not very good at articulating the value of our PMO. What is it that we're actually bringing to the table? Often we don't deliver projects directly, we don't add money to the bottom line, we don't necessarily drive efficiency directly that we can track, so we need to think outside the box. To do that, we talk about the PMO as a service provider, so thinking about our PMO customers and what their journey looks like, and how can we define the right services, deliver those services, and also measure them. You'll remember from the evolution map at level 4, we should be also measuring the PMO's performance. That's something that's going to be really important to help us to articulate this is the value that we bring. When it comes to the third in technology, again, it's about enabling ourselves with technology. First of all, the technology you have available to you now. So don't necessarily go straight into buying something. Understand what you want that thing to do. Work with the partner to really define what your requirements are. And sometimes that will look like we need to continue with the tools we've got now to understand what it is that we actually wanted to do in the future, considering that pragmatic view, that scalability of the methodology. And then the training and support. So developing a training pathway for people who are involved in the PMO is going to be really important. It's no good saying, well, the PMO work in this kind of more traditional waterfall Prince 2 type way, but most of our teams are working in Agile if we don't train the PMO team in Agile. So making sure that we are driving for that common language, a common approach across the organization, across PMO, delivery teams, and those that are also impacted by change is going to be really important. There is a white paper on our website that you can download, which is all about developing kind of PMO learning strategies. So really thinking about now, what do we need to deliver, and in the future, and how can we upskill our PMO teams? So take a look at that. In terms of getting started, I've mentioned some of this already in terms of I'm a firm believer of you can't know where you're going until you know where you've been. So take stock of your current performance, your current state. Are you very tactical right now, or are you operating at a very strategic level? Are there some gaps in what it is that your PMO can and should be delivering for its PMO customers? Then we need to understand what are our critical success factors. So defining the future state. What does that future state look like if we fast forward, let's say 2 years? When I develop PMO roadmaps, we don't really ever look any further than kind of 18 months to 2 years, because the world is changing so quickly that it will require pivoting and rehashing the journey. So if you could put yourself in a DeLorean time machine and fast forward 2 years, what would that state, that future state, look like? Those two questions are going to give you the gap. So then we start to understand how can we get from where we are today to our desired future state. And now we need to be good project managers, and we need to start planning. So put a plan in place, create a learning strategy for the PMO, as well as that target operating model, etc., so that you know what it is that you're aiming for and how you plan to get there. Next, we need to get better at communicating. As a general statement, PMOs suck at communication. We're very good at navel gazing and understanding what went wrong, but we're not actually very good at pushing information and knowledge out of the PMO. We tend to leave that to the project managers with the lessons learned, and then obviously as we know, nothing really tends to happen with those. So we need to get better at communications. So defining a comm strategy for the PMO is going to really help us to be able to articulate the value and what it is that we're here to do. And you can only really do that with your PMO customers. So make sure that you engage. You don't sit in an ivory tower defining what the future looks like without speaking to your PMO customers. Because what you'll do is you'll build your idea of a PMO from a maturity perspective, but it still won't add value, and eventually it will fail if we don't consult our PMO customers right from the very beginning. So learn to think about comms and customers in the same breath. We want to be able to consult with our customers and give them the information and the knowledge that they need in order to be confident that we are here doing positive things for the project management practice. All PMOs will have what we call dark arts. So normally at Wellingtone, we only really talk about the dark arts in our PMO leader course, because kind of industry dark arts, if I reel them off, you'll probably recognize some of them. So resource management, portfolio management, prioritization, project categorization, knowledge management and lessons learned, building a culture of change. So thinking about some of those dark arts, what are yours? Where are the areas that you really struggle to embed a process that you've maybe tried and failed? You know it's really important, like benefits management is another one. So identify what your dark arts are and make sure that you plan for those, that you look at having those in your future strategy, in your future plan, so that you're targeting something bigger than the tactical things. PMOs quite often get stuck in the tactical world and really just dealing with the day-to-day. What we need to do is elevate that view, that perspective, so we can see a little bit more. And then lastly, get help. So don't feel like you have to do this on your own. Wellingtone are here, whether you're a client or not, to help you with your journey. And there are lots of networks and groups that you can join that are really can really help you with your journey. For getting help, learn from others using the community events like this. So if you're here, chances are you're already part of the Wellingtone community. If you haven't, do join. We do have a theme every month and events like these, so free learning and sharing events. So make sure that you engage with us through that channel. If you're part of the community, you also get to take advantage of our Dr. PMO clinic. So if you feel like I want more information about some of the stuff that Emma's talked about, or I'd like to bounce an idea off somebody, then you actually have access to our Dr. PMO clinic as long as you are an active member of our Wellingtone community. And that is a free 30-minute session where you can just bring whatever you need to chat through, whether it's about your PMO, you and your career, or anything else. Join courses to educate yourselves and your team on topics. So we know that specialization is becoming more and more important, is one of the trends that we saw right at the beginning of 2025, where we're seeing that PMOs are taking on board more specialized topics such as change management, agile ways of working. They're doing more assurance. So make sure that you educate yourselves as PMOs in some of these so that the tacit knowledge is in the business and you feel confident to deliver those services. You can also review how you are performing. So we do have access to a free self-assessment, a PMO MOT tool that can help you to just pinpoint if there are any specific areas of risk for you right now. So again, feel free to download that and have a go through with your team. And then again, maybe you book a Dr. PMO clinic and we can go through your results. Next, embrace change through ongoing development of key areas. So making sure that you look at what else is happening, making sure that you are aware of the dark arts, the things that are happening both in and outside of the organization that are going to really help you. So embrace change yourselves. And then if you want to, plan and use our pick and mix of services and support at Wellingtone, because we are here to kind of help you with your journey. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of an insight into how PMOs tend to evolve over time, some of the tactics that we can talk about from a project management and PMO perspective, and some of the ways that you can potentially get help. So connect with me or connect with the Wellingtone community if you haven't already. But thank you so much for joining us. Hannah's just popped the 2 events that are coming up next week. So hopefully we'll see you there. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into maturity and characteristics that you might find in your own PMO. And we'll also be talking about technology. And hopefully we'll see you then. Thank you so much.